The Locust Mantra is the second album and second part of a trilogy that Third Storm is working on. Now, this is a Swedish, Uppsala, Sweden-based uh, black death thrash metal band who were originally around for just a couple of years in the late 80s, from 1986 to 88, when they were just kind of teenagers getting a whiff of extreme metal, be it mostly black thrash and early black metal back in the late 80s. They were a little bit more extreme than their surroundings were by their own description, and they're sort of remembered as a band that just kind of started and stopped in a sort of a black metal style back then. They reformed about 2014, and this band features members of Sarcasm. And if you're familiar with that band, it sort of helps you get kick-started as to what to expect. Now, I haven't heard the early demos from this band, so I can't really comment about where they came from. I just know that as history has written, they were influenced by Bathory, Sodom, Venom, Hellhammer, that kind of thing. And some of that late 80s thrash is still a part of their intent here. You know, they definitely came from the early extreme metal side of things, the concurrence between thrash, death, and black metal, especially from the Swedish perspective, which they comment there was some South American influence to their early attack, which was framed by blast beats and whatnot. So this record is a much more complex beast, and I think before I go into the discography and get into all that, I would say let's listen to a song and just get a sense of the narrative style of the band. So I did say this was a second part of a trilogy, and it is telling a story, and you can parse whatever that means from the lyrics yourself. You can get into it yourself. I think the style of the band is harder to pin down up front. Now, if you're like a pretty diehard fan of Swedish metal, especially black metal, and where a lot of things went in kind of the late 90s, you'll expect, where do melodic black death metal and thrash metal kind of meet around 1996 to 2001. It was kind of maybe Witchery is what you think of first, and then there's more obvious bands from there. But for me, a group like Satanic Slaughter started in a more raw place, and Swordmaster was in a more melodic place. And I think that what Third Storm does combines the thrash and the melodic death metal, the melodic black metal that was of that era, and works those melodic black metal breakthroughs in with forms of death thrash metal. It's a hard thing to sort of delineate, because black and thrash does kind of work into their affect. It isn't that complicated in motion, though, as you'll have heard in the clip. They use quite a lot of run-on sentences to narrate. The vocals play off of the guitar rhythms, so as elaborate as the guitar is, so is as elaborate as the vocals are, and they kind of play off one another in a way it was a little bit much on the first record. There was just a lot of singing, just a lot of riffs, and it worked, but it was chaos. And this record pulls back on that chaos, works in some of these sort of Bathory influences and things, and slows down the pace once in a while, and it works a lot better. It's a little bit more of a listenable, repeatable record that certainly gets its long-winded story across, but more effectively, with a couple of points of impact that are pretty memorable. So it is a lot to take in. I think it's going to be a lot for a lot of listeners, where there's nothing like inherently cool about this in terms of like inserting trendy shit in there, but it is a unique thing, and I think that they do a good job of marrying these pieces of black metal, death metal, and thrash metal as they see it between the 80s, the 90s, and now. And it doesn't feel like a throwback. It doesn't feel like a full-on, modern metal record. It's sort of an underground metal record with a unique style. And I think there were a lot of more things like this in the late 90s and the 2000s, especially in United States black metal, where there was, groups like Absu who were pulling from a lot of different places. So I think that's who this kind of record will appeal to most, is the fan of that kind of thing. And I just think this is kind of a cool record in general. I like the look of it. I know that it's a bit different, but that was why I liked it. So for me, that's a high recommendation. It's just kind of teetering right at the 80 mark. They're I'm not sure of the lasting value. This isn't a thing that's going to hook in and make memories so much as impress with its unique style and an interesting lyrics to follow and whatnot. So check that out if that's your interest. It is already out, and you can read the review for more of my thoughts.